Have you ever been watching the show Gilmore Girls and you just needed to pause it for a second to gather your thoughts? It's such a relatable yet unrelatable show, especially among Gen Z, where we can't decide whether we love the characters or we want to be them. I was watching the one where main character Rory gets offered an internship, and I've never wanted to jump through a TV screen more. If you've seen the show, you know that this opportunity doesn't end well for her. The outcome actually leaves her spiraling. Being a class of 2022 high school graduate who entered the workforce right after graduation, I've picked up on a lot. Learning from CEOs, award-winning producers, and even an original shark on Shark Tank, Kevin Harrington, I'm gaining an understanding on how to best approach work environments as a young adult. With Rory's internship in these episodes, there's so much to unpack, so let's break down where she went wrong so you can avoid making the same mistakes as a young professional. I'm Leah Leverich, a class of 2022 high school graduate exploring every path to success after senior year. Let's expand your mind to what's out there and narrow down your options so you can make a graduation decision with confidence.
The Decision Day podcast is brought to you by the Rise Up Record event in Nashville, Tennessee. Rise up and share your story through video. Visit riseuprecord.com for more.
All right, season 5, episode 20 of Gilmore Girls, we watch as Rory goes to her first day of her first ever internship at the Stanford Eagle Gazette. For those of you who don't know, Rory is currently a sophomore at Yale, majoring in English, and she has an interest in pursuing journalism. It sounds like such a great opportunity, right? Not only is the CEO of the company taking her under his wing, but it's her dream career and she's only a sophomore in college. I watched this episode ready to relate to her feelings, being thrown right into the working world, but was extremely surprised with Rory's performance and where the writers decided to take this plot. I understand that the show aims to come across as genuine and witty and maybe even dramatic, but this episode left me feeling nervous for teenagers and young students who watch this and idolize it. You might be wondering, how did she get such a great opportunity as a sophomore? Honestly, it's because of who she surrounded herself with. Normally, I say that as a good thing. We preach on Decision Day the power of your network and the endless opportunities that can come from the people you know. I mean, I only have my full-time job because my mom talked to somebody who knew somebody who was looking for a social media manager. But in this case, Rory kind of gets her internship out of pity. She's dating this super rich guy named Logan. His dad's name is Mitchum, and he owns the Huntsberger Publishing Company, which is a national newspaper conglomerate. He began his career as a reporter and editor on 2 papers, later ascending to the CEO position. So Logan's dad, Mitchum, is currently a very successful CEO. Logan is designated as the company's heir, and so after a horrible experience meeting Logan's extremely wealthy family for the first time, Rory questions her worth. She begins to ask herself why she isn't good enough to be with Logan or to join their family. The next day, Logan's dad, Mitchum, visits Rory at Yale student newspaper room to apologize to her for the awkward experience meeting the family and also offer her an internship at his company. When he enters the room, Rory's best friend gets up immediately to introduce herself and shake his hand. Like, everyone just kind of stops what they're doing. They notice that Mitchum entered the room and they are all ears. Like, they want any ounce of his attention. Rory, however, stands slowly and gives him little attention. So the show establishes right away that people take Mitchum very seriously and he's a big deal, especially in the world of journalism. Realistically speaking, though, would a CEO take time out of their really busy schedule to pop in on an extracurricular at a random college on a random afternoon just to apologize or just to offer something? Probably not. But you know, it's a fictional show, so we can move past it. Not only does Rory show little interest in this CEO and her boyfriend's dad, but if this were the real world, I think most CEOs would find that kind of disrespectful. Rory makes some interesting choices here. So now that we've painted the picture, here's a clip of the dialogue so we can dissect it.
I'm happy for you. I'm happy for me too. Mr. Huntsberger.
Hello there. Hello, Rory.
Hi. Paris Geller. We met a couple months ago.
I remember the handshake. Reminded me of Jimmy Breslin's.
High compliment.
Would you excuse us?
Oh, sure.
I'm very sorry about what happened the other night.
It's okay.
My family behaved atrociously, and though Logan was a little naive to walk into the lion's den without a chair like that, they were wrong, and you deserve an apology.
Okay. Thank you.
So, I hear you have some rather lofty journalistic aspirations.
I have plans.
You know, my company just acquired a small newspaper, the Stanford Eagle Gazette. Decent circulation, pretty sorry writing, but definite potential. I have an internship available if you're interested.
An internship?
Be a good chance for you to get your feet wet. Experience how the real thing works.
No. Thank you.
No, thank you.
I appreciate the offer, but no.
May I be so bold as to inquire, why the hell not?
Because I have a feeling that the only reason you're doing this is because you feel guilty about what happened the other night at dinner, and it's very nice, but very unnecessary.
So what?
Excuse me?
Say the only reason I offered this to you is because my family behaved badly and I wanted to make up for it. Say I have no interest in furthering your career. This is still an opportunity. Who cares why you got the opportunity? It's here. And life is about making the most of everything you're handed. Well, this is being handed to you. Now, what are you going to do about it? Monday, 10 o'clock. Call my office for the details. And bring a pencil.
Rory, girl, what? First of all, I don't think I'd ever have the guts to say that to any adult, let alone a successful CEO. But also, as young adults starting our careers, it's just kind of well known that you take every legit opportunity that presents itself as long as it aligns with your morals. So we've done a whole episode on Decision Day just talking about showing up and saying yes. From my observation entering the workplace so far, if a CEO or a really successful person offers an internship to someone with little to no experience and technically, in Rory's case, no degree yet, and they said no, the CEO would probably say goodbye and leave without giving it further thought. I bet they'd probably write you off entirely. Because now, in a few weeks, when you change your mind and you go, oh, I really should have taken that offer, if you try to approach them again for another chance, I don't think you would get it. This scenario where Rory declines and Mitchum practically persuades her into taking the job seems very unrealistic in the real world. Yes, I know Gilmore Girls is not a nonfiction documentary, but I can't help thinking about the young boys and girls watching this and looking up to Rory, thinking that her response was completely justified. Mitchum also says, say I have no interest in furthering your career. This is still an opportunity. Who cares why you got the opportunity? And I hate to say it, I'm going to have to completely agree with this man here. I know when I first started my position, I was so ashamed that my mom played a part in getting me the connection because I was 17, I was just craving any sort of independence that I could get. So I was almost upset that I didn't acquire that opportunity on my own. But now after almost 4 years of working full-time at that same opportunity, I couldn't care less about how I got it. All that matters is that I took it and I ran with it. Because now I have an experience under my belt, I'm learning so much, I'm meeting people, growing my network, and I'm also making money. Rory's initial response would have denied her of all of that. Mitchum also says, who cares why you got the opportunity? It's here and life is about making the most of everything you're handed. Well, this is being handed to you. That just kind of sums it up. Like, I don't know. I can't hate Mitchum in this scenario because he's got a point. I'm just picturing a student who doesn't get handed these chances every day. Maybe they aren't Rory, they don't have Rory's background, or they don't have a strong support system. A student like that would probably jump for joy at an opportunity like that, while Rory so quickly chose to deny it just based on the family drama that she had. He tells Rory at the end, now what are you going to do about it? Which is basically a test on her maturity and her drive. She responds with a smile and a nod. Thank God she came to her senses. She's taking the internship. She didn't express any gratitude for the opportunity, but she's taking the internship. That's fine. Let's see where she can go with this. It's just interesting the way that they set up this scene to launch this big plot about her internship because Rory has a bunch of redeeming qualities. She's super smart. She is almost like a goody-goody. She's never really done anything wrong. I'd say keep an eye on all those good things she's doing and just maybe don't take inspiration from this side of her. All right, it's Rory's first day on the job. In the next episode, we see her dressed in a blazer, a skirt, heels, and she's wandering into the Stanford Eagle Gazette office. After asking for help from the lady at the front desk and receiving very little direction on what to do, I have to admire the initiative she takes. Because rather than just sitting around, acting confused, waiting, she makes a point to find an employee that will help guide her. So there are a few good things here, I'm not gonna lie. Rory is dressed professionally, she seems prepared and eager to learn. I might not come off so jumpy if I were her. Like, that was definitely one of those moments where I was like, why is she jumping up and down trying to get these people's attention? But allowing your personality to shine through could make for a good first impression. So I think that's fine. You don't want to just be, like a wet sandwich. Eventually, Rory gets a quick rundown of the office. It's a ton of information at once from this one coworker, but I think that was just the intention of the scene. It's kind of like a bunch of nonsense just to show that Rory's feeling very confused in this new environment. For this, bringing a notebook or computer could never hurt, especially if you're going to be taking notes, which you probably should. I'm not going to lie, I've been in the position where all I had was my phone to take notes, and I felt guilty the entire time. Like, I just remember I was writing things down in my notes app, but I was at a tour, and the person giving the tour probably thought I was just texting the whole time because, it looks weird when you're just staring down at your phone typing. So I think nothing comes off more credible than just traditional pen and paper for this scenario. Once she kind of gets her bearings straight, she makes herself at home, she grabs a coffee, she takes a selfie with like a really old flip phone, but I can't even lie, this move might be a good idea because it never hurts to document experiences like job shadows, tours, or internships. Trust me, you're gonna want that for your resume, to post on your LinkedIn, or just to be like, okay, this was an experience that I got. Especially with everyone having social media, you kind of just want these things documented. So it's not that bad of an idea as long as the timing is obviously appropriate. Other than that, you shouldn't really have any need for your phone, if I'm being honest. If your employer happens to catch you on it, that probably won't be the best first impression. So now that we're in the office, everyone gathers around to catch a glimpse of the CEO, Mitchum, as he enters with a swarm of people around him. So they're really giving him that, celebrity status, again, symbolizing how highly he's praised here. Rory rattles off a few facts about him. I don't know if that was the best timing, but it's never a bad idea to show up prepared. Mitchum announces a meeting with all of the department heads and asks that Rory follows him. She turns around for a second and then she loses sight of him. I think that was just a little comedic thing that the writers included, so you're obviously not going to do that. But the next time we see her, she's running after him without her heels on, like she's avidly trying to chase him down and taking off her shoes. I would hope that you don't take off your shoes on the first day of work either. That was just specifically one of those moments where I was like, what is she doing? Like, can I, put me in, coach? Rory and Mitchum finally have a moment, just the two of them, and she spends it talking about something random. Why didn't she ask him any questions here? I just really want to know, why are we talking about how quick he could run a mile? This is your chance. Everyone's fighting for time with him, and you just got that time with him. That is when you could be like, what's your favorite and least favorite part about working here? Does this job require a certain degree? How's the company culture? Anything. She could have asked him anything. If you're shadowing or if you're working with a higher up at a company, I'd even ask them questions if they seem busy. You want to show that you're curious and that you care. After all, you're there to learn from them and talk to them. As everyone enters this meeting, Rory gets the door slammed in her face, kind of like, oh, you're not allowed in. So she decides to call her boyfriend on a nearby phone to ask him for help. Make note of this moment. This is going to come into play later. If I were Rory, I would have opened the door and followed Mitchum into the room. I feel like that's now me talking with a little bit more experience in the workplace. I might have been a little bit reluctant to do that if this was first day on any job ever. But I think following them into the room is always going to be a better option than calling your boyfriend, even if he is the son of the CEO. I don't know. I just feel like if you walk in and they kick you out, so what? At least you showed initiative. And if they don't kick you out, then great. You got to listen in on an insightful meeting. Altogether, Rory is experiencing one of those awkward first day stories. I know I had a similar experience. First day of 9th grade, everything was going wrong. I felt like I don't want to be here. I can't wait to go home. It makes for a funny story in the future, but she just needs to get through this day. I think what Rory could use here is honestly just some confidence. Of course, that comes with practice, but if you're in a position like this with professionals, you want to make yourself look impressive. Forget looking timid, forget being embarrassed or looking dumb. You're expected to be clueless in this environment because it's your first day. That's why I think it's so important to just ask questions. Fill the silence with questions. At the end of the episode, clearly a few days have passed. We watch as Rory waits for Mitchum to arrive at the elevator. She's there on time. She knows his schedule at this point, and she follows him with a coffee in hand. While she is being helpful, I'm afraid she's not leaving a lasting impression beyond being that intern that hands out coffee. I started to wonder, again, what would I do if I were her? Like, did she have an opportunity where she could maybe start writing some of her own articles based on what she's learned so far? Start doing the actual work that they're doing. Maybe she noticed something wasn't getting done in a meeting, so she took it upon herself to do it. Also, if you are in a meeting and there's an opportunity, if it's an open conversation, maybe contribute some value or knowledge from your perspective, like anything. I feel like just breaking past that person who grabs coffee for everyone, it could have really made a difference for her here. The episode ends with Rory waiting at the door before another meeting starts when Mitchum says, "What are you waiting for, Rory? An engraved invitation?" And then Rory follows him happily into the meeting. While you could see this as polite of her to wait until she was asked to come in, it might not be that intense drive that this CEO is clearly looking for. So the internship is wrapping up. Let's see how Rory did. It's episode 21 and we see a completely different side of her. She looks comfortable, confident, and she addresses the others in the office by their names. She's busy, running around, very occupied, familiar with her environment, getting things done, and even making jokes. All ideal. People are even assigning her things to do. She's clearly in her element. As viewers, we feel proud and happy for her because we're rooting for Rory. We know her potential. She begins to mention an interest in getting the summer job that they're offering, explaining how much she loves the current position and the work environment. Like, you can tell, this is the place that she wants to end up. But a few days later, we see her setting the table for a meeting when Mitchum walks in. All these meetings, I swear. It's like all they do. With the way that everyone was dying to get his attention or even a minute of his time, I saw this as a golden opportunity for her to sit down and ask him for advice. They could have talked about his career, gone over tasks that she's done, literally anything. Instead, her phone starts ringing and insists on ignoring it until Mitchum gives her permission to take it. I feel like this was another test of his. She takes the phone call rather than doubling down and staying focused on what she was doing or even talking to Mitchum. She's like avoiding him. He even says, "You've got 10 minutes. I'm gonna stay here, catch up on emails." Like, he's kind of just like, I'll find something to do. No, Rory, like, you have him. Give him something to do, or I don't know. I don't think she did that one right. It just seems like a really big missed opportunity and maybe even misaligned priorities as well. If you want something, like she allegedly wants this summer job, then you've got to go all in. Okay, I'm gonna take a sip of water. It's time for the big scene. This is the scene that made me want to write out this 6-page episode. Like, I needed to talk to you about this. I was pacing in front of my TV, talking to myself. I was like acting out how I would do this scene differently in my head. There's just so much going on here. So Rory is sitting behind Mitchum in the back of the room during, you guessed it, another meeting. Now, with that, she could always pull up a chair and sit with the rest of the employees at the table. Like, I just feel like having the intern in the back of the room, you fade into the wallpaper. Like, make yourself known, make yourself part of the environment, make yourself a member of the team, sit at the table. This might sound impolite again, but I was just at a work event where this happened to me. I actually found myself like, there were no seats left. I would have to sit kind of in the back. I'm not a higher up, so like, it's fine. I'll give someone else my seat, but also I need to be part of this conversation. It was very weird, but I got some advice from a very wise and experienced coworker, and he told me that I needed to be even more aggressive during these in-person work trips. Just like Rory could have been here. She just needed to be a little bit more aggressive. Not in a bad way, but just kind of proving your value. Another idea that I had while I was watching this, she could have taken notes during the meeting and provided a summary to every coworker. That's valuable rather than just sitting in the back. After this meeting, Mitchum and Rory are the only ones left in the room again, so they sit down to evaluate her performance. He even calls attention to the fact that they haven't discussed her work yet, and she says, "You've been very busy," which she's not wrong, but he said, "I meant to." This is another time where I feel like it's very unrealistic. If you want the CEO to sit down with you and talk about your performance, then you have to approach them. Does that make sense? Like, the CEO shouldn't be apologizing for not approaching an intern. That's just what I've noticed seeing a few different CEOs. They're so busy thinking about everything that they have to do, it's not necessarily their responsibility to share advice unless they're prompted or asked. Here's the exact feedback that Mitchum gives Rory as her internship comes to an end.
You know, you and I haven't really sat down and talked about the situation, about how you're doing here and all.
Well, you've been busy.
I've meant to. I offered you the job, took you under my wing. It's part of the deal.
Great. I'd love your feedback.
I've worked with a lot of young people over the years, interns, new hires. I've got a pretty good gut sense for people's strengths and weaknesses, whether they have that certain something to make it in journalism. It's tough business, a lot of stress.
Definitely.
And I have to tell you, you don't got it. Now, guts can be wrong. Mine's been wrong before, but not often.
I thought I was doing okay.
I just don't think you really have the drive to put yourself out there, to be honest. To get a story, to dig. I mean, just now in this meeting, I encouraged everyone to say whatever they wanted. You said nothing.
I wasn't sure if I should.
Exactly. I mean, you saw Harry. He jumped right into the fire. You didn't.
But Harry's not an intern.
Doesn't matter.
I've always done what's asked of me.
See, the thing is, in the real world, it's not always good enough to do just what's asked of you.
But I thought I was in a really good rhythm with everyone here.
I'm not saying you're not competent. You're smart. You're terrific at anticipating needs. Actually, you'd make a great assistant.
Oh.
I'm sorry. It's not my pleasure to disappoint someone like you. But it's healthy. I don't know any other way. I don't BS.
I should get back.
I know this is rough, but I may have just done you a big favor.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
If you know Rory, you know that she's been a scholar her whole life, very rarely receiving criticism or hearing the word no. So when a fellow successful person tells her what she doesn't want to hear, she panics. We see a similar scene in Little Women. If you've watched, I'm thinking of the 2019 version, talented writer Jo receives feedback that she asked for from a critic. When he says that her writing isn't very good, she gets defensive and leaves. Jo doesn't talk to that critic for several years. Eventually, she realizes that she reacted out of emotion and that he was probably right. The same kind of thing happens here with Rory. Rather than accepting the feedback for what it is, she can't fathom the idea that she could have done better, or she could have done something differently, or that she's even wrong. At this moment, all I wanted to tell her to do was listen. I just wanted to be like, Rory, girl, sit back, close the mouth, and just hear what he has to say. Like, this guy knows his stuff. While Rory is a genius, he has more knowledge in this field. If she were to eliminate emotions and just take the advice, the conversation probably would have ended better. Also, just because he said that she doesn't have what it takes, that doesn't mean that she won't have what it takes in the future. From his perspective, he didn't see in her what he was looking for. This just means that she needs to advocate for herself more, prove to him what she's done or what she can do through her actions, and maybe even make herself more prominent. It's just like when Mitchum mentions that she didn't even speak up in the meeting. She didn't take a risk to contribute to the conversation because she didn't have that drive in the moment. Okay, if you take anything from this episode, please take away this. Rory says, "I've always done what's asked of me." And Mitchum responds, "In the real world, it's not always good enough to do just what's asked of you." I can absolutely attest to this. I've been at work trips before where those who go above and beyond stand out and are rewarded. You just have to go out of your way to contribute, go the extra mile, provide value. Employers won't be satisfied if you just do the bare minimum, if you just show up and kind of bring coffee or sit in the back like Rory was doing. I bet they'd rather have an engaged member of the team who underpromises and over-delivers. I admit that the performance review was pretty harsh. We've been rooting for Rory over the past 4 seasons, but Mitchum has a point. This was a hard truth that Rory needed to hear, and definitely a good reminder for us young adults entering the workforce. Similarly, I found an interesting comment on Reddit by user MemeBeam78. I was like, is anyone else feeling the same way about this scene? Like, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. This person said, "I always remembered the feedback session with Mitchum being super brutal. But honestly, on one hand, he isn't even really all that wrong. She didn't seem to speak up or assert herself during her time there. On the other hand, he admits he's also been wrong before. And it was only a 2-week internship. How could he have possibly observed her?" MemeBeam78, I'm going to have to agree. Overall, I think we can agree this is such an interesting conversation. Did the writers paint Mitchum as the villain on purpose? Do they want us to feel sympathetic for Rory? Why does everyone in Rory's life take her side at the end and not Mitchum's? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, especially, if we're talking Gilmore Girls, what team are you? I know we've got Jess, we've got Dean, we've got Logan. Let me know what you think. Also, spoiler alert, Rory feels emotional after the talk with Mitchum and ends up spontaneously stealing a boat with her boyfriend Logan. Literally speaking, the talk with Mitchum sent her to jail. Her life is very chaotic up until she returns to the Stanford Eagle Gazette months later, piecing her life back together. With some persistence, she gets hired there, and even though her path wasn't linear, she eventually made it. Hopefully this was a fun listen, a little bit different from the normal episodes on Decision Day. I hope it made you think a little deeper and feel a little bit more prepared to enter the workforce. If you liked this episode and you want to see more like this, let me know. I'm happy to watch shows and review them like this, especially if it has to do with Decision Day. If there's any industry that you're interested in learning more about, let me know and I'll find a representative to interview. You can reach out to me with anything on social media at Decision Day Podcast or at Leah Leverich. You can also check out the website, leahleverich.com. There's a contact form over there. There's also an anonymous question submission form in the description on all of the episodes. I had so much fun talking through Rory's disaster of an internship in this episode. I look forward to sharing a new perspective with you in the next one.
Thanks for listening to the Decision Day podcast. If you know a student in high school, ask them to listen or share an episode with them. And as always, we love hearing from you. Share your stories with us on social, Decision Day Podcast. Until next week. Decision Day Podcast is sponsored by the Rise and Record event, Nashville, Tennessee. riseandrecord.com for more info.